Okay, welcome, Andrew. Welcome to Heart to Heart. We are so excited to have you here and to be part of our conversation. At
Thank
Hearts and
you.
Minds Matter, we are so dedicated to building inclusion and communities in classrooms, to working on emotional intelligence and resilience. So thank you so much for giving us your time all
My
the way
pleasure.
from Jamaica, which is
My
so
pleasure.
amazing. So
Thank you.
Andrew is Dr. Andrew Campbell, or Dr. ABC, which I love that little handle, is a graduate of the University of Toronto with a PhD in educational leadership, equity, diversity, and he is presently a faculty member at the Master of Teaching program at OISE, where we work together, and also an adjunct professor at Queen's University Online. He is an Ontario certified teacher and has been an educator for over 25 years in Jamaica, the Bahamas, and Canada. He's authored 2 books, Teachable Moments with Dr. ABC, A Spoonful for the Journey, which he presents on Facebook and has a wonderful audience, and it's so much fun to listen
Thank
to.
you.
And he's also an author of The Invisible Student in the Jamaican Classroom. His research and teaching focus are issues of equity, diversity, inclusion, and leadership, LGBTQ issues, and teacher performance evaluation. He's presented at numerous peer-reviewed academic conferences and has delivered many presentations as a motivational speaker, keynote, and workshop facilitator. He loves people, food, fashion, and traveling. And
Yes.
I always say, Andrew, you can tell how much you love people and people love you. So
Thank you
welcome
so
to
much.
Heart to Heart.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
So
you.
we're going to start this interview with just a fun kind of question to say, what do you love about teaching?
What do I love about teaching? I love the interaction. I love that school is never boring. I love that every day at school is different. And I'm sure you've been like me, a teacher. I've tried to repeat a day. I've tried. Let me be honest. It never worked. There is no 2 day at school that is the same. And because of that, I'm excited. You're never bored. There's always something happening. There's always something on the move, something happening. And so for me, teaching is because I'm never bored. And it's exciting. The students, the parents, the colleagues. School is an entire world by itself. If you get to be a teacher, those out there who are listening, school is an entire world by itself. And I love school. That's my world.
It is. It's an amazing place to be. And the never boring thing, I always say, I've taught for over 40 years. There's not one day I would say I was ever bored at a school.
Yes,
Never.
yes,
And what's
yes.
your favorite thing to teach?
I would say my favorite thing is really reading. I, I'm wrestling with it because I love to teach so many things. But I think as a school teacher, some of my best moments were teaching reading. And reading, when I said reading, I mean reading to kids who could not read. So kids who were labeled and in the reading room. Those days we had the reading resource room. And I've been the reading resource teacher in Jamaica and in the Bahamas. And I've taught, special ed, and I've taught behavioral class. So for me, the best thing to teach, or the best moment to teach, is the students who I know need me most. That's the best thing. The students who need me most. I remember having a grade 5 class in Jamaica, and these were big boys who were 9 and 10, and some of them couldn't even read once. They couldn't even read a sentence. And that for me was an exciting year because I get to see them coming from not able to read a sentence to write stories at the end of June. And those are my awards. Those are my major accomplishment. And it always, you talk about heart and mind. It goes to my heart. At the end of those school year, I breathe and it goes to my heart that I did that. And so that is my joy when I see students move, and not just in school, but I see students move in university and college. I taught at Seneca, and I've seen students, when I started at Seneca, and I would tell them to dream bigger, and they would look at me like, it's like their dream is just this diploma. And I have those students right now who are in master's program, and it give me chills. And they would send me email to say, Dr. Campbell, you pushed me, you saw that, you said I could. I am now finished my master's. I am now second year or first year, or just got into my master's. And that is the distance, the path. It makes me happy. And that is my happy moment.
It is so much fun to watch them grow. And, you know, you and I both teach at OISE in the Master of Teaching
Yes.
program, and to see them when they first come in September,
Oh,
and then when they
yes.
walk across the stage, it is so fantastic. I just love it. And to
Yeah.
keep in touch with them over the years to see how they grow as a teacher is just so rewarding. I love it too.
Amazing.
I love it too. So let's get right into it. So our issue today that we're talking about is a huge issue, one that
Yeah.
we all need to really pay attention to. It is not something that is new to us. It's been happening forever and ever, but right now it is in the news, and it is really time that we do something about it. And that is the issue of equity, diversity, and anti-racism work. So,
Yeah.
Andrew, why is it so critically important for teachers and parents
Yeah.
to do equity, diversity, and anti-racism work with children?
So when you say parents and teachers and parents, there are two separate groups and two different space. So let's talk about teachers first. So school for me is the best, the richest soil. The richest soil is school, and kids come there ready. They come with so much expectation, and we are supposed to fill them up and nurture them and water them and allow them to grow. And so for me, school is the most fertile place for us, for our kids to learn and our students to learn grace. And I use those simple terms: learn equity, learn empathy, learn kindness. Because sometimes we like to go to equity and anti-racism. We go to these big terminologies, prejudice and privilege. And we forget those things are rested in things like kindness, sharing, dignity, honesty, trustworthiness. And we teach those character traits in school, and those are supposed to be nurtured in school. So it's important. But even an extension of that, those conversations that we are supposed to be having, students can take them. I think sometimes we find as teachers, we are protecting our kids or protecting our students from some of these real courageous conversations. They know them. They see them on the computer. They know them out there. They see them on the bus, on the subway. They see what's going on out there. And so protecting them from it is not the way to go. As for parents, home is the first school. So what better place to nurture these skills of equity is at home, but also your children watching you, modeling those, how graceful you are, how you treat. And I say this to you, Jackie, I can tell as a teacher who has been an LTO for years, I've gone to school, right? I can tell as a Black teacher walking into a school, especially predominantly white spaces, what kind of conversation is happening at home about Mr. Campbell by the kids' reaction. I have seen kids come to school and they relate to me in such an amazing way. They just can't get enough of Mr. Campbell. And when I meet their parents, I go, yeah, their parents, they are white kids. But the way they react to me, they see me as their teacher. The conversation at home is that I am great, I am valuable, I'm valid, I'm important, and they respect me. You can see the energy. And I've had, on the opposite side, I've had students that when they come to school, you could sense attention. And you could sense they're watching me and wondering if I can, if I'm able to, if I'm good enough, if I'm the right teacher. And it comes out in their body language. And that comes from home. Those cues that come from home. And when I meet their parents, I go, I see it. So whether we like it, yes or no, at school and at home, we are teaching equity, diversity, anti-Black racism and inclusion. We are doing it because we are doing it by our body language. We are doing it by our cues. We are doing it by what show we said is good to watch, what show is not good to watch, who is valuable, who is not valuable, how we deal with people in the streets. We are teaching those incidental learning moments. So it's very important that we do it in a more concerted or in a more intentional way. And so, because teaching is happening whether we like it, yes or no.
Absolutely. Kids are little sponges. They're picking up
Absolutely
everything. You are so
Yep.
right there. Okay, so what would you say to teachers and parents who are fearful sometimes of doing this kind of work? We hear it all the time at OISE. I
Yep.
don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to make it worse. So they're fearful sometimes because we want them to really understand the importance to be able to deliver the messages, but we know sometimes they get fearful. So what would you say to those people who are experiencing that?
I would say to them, you know what? Your fear is illegitimate, right? It's a lot going on. It's tense. You know, I keep on saying we do not talk about equity, inclusion, and diversity like we talk about our regular fairy tale. It's not. It's not. And no matter how we try to dress it up, put makeup on it, make it sweet, make it cute, it's not cute work. We know that. These are courageous conversations. We see that. We establish that. When I do a workshop, Jackie, I say to people, let us engage in a courageous conversation. And I give them warning. You're going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. I may say something and you go, but it's okay, because you are in a space where you are going to get the respect, number one, from me. I am going to challenge you. I'm going to call you out, but I will never leave without calling you in. So you will never leave my workshop damaged. You'll never leave my workshop feeling like I ripped you apart. There's no award. There's no dignity in ripping you apart because you don't understand something. So I know the fear is legitimate, but I would say to my students and I say to my teacher candidate, being fearful is not going to be the excuse for you not doing. We have to do. One example I'll share with you is Black History Month. I have seen over the years, and I'm sure you have seen it, principals and teachers struggle to celebrate Black History Month because they don't want to say the wrong thing and do the wrong thing, and they don't want to make sure they misrepresent certain things. I say to my teacher, I said, first of all, let's be frank. It's a Black History celebration. How do you start a celebration? Let's start from a celebration. So think about how you're going to celebrate. And we don't celebrate, we don't have to start our celebration with slavery, right? You start a celebration and you give to the students the level they're at, what they can manage at that time. And why not just anchor it in strength? So those are some of these work that we have to do. We have to make sure we anchor them in strength. So we don't want to take on the most, you know, sometimes I see our young teacher candidates, they want to take on like the most controversial topic. You don't take on the most controversial topic. One of the things I teach in a course I teach at Queens, there's an entire unit on empathy. This is a graduate level leadership course, and there's an entire unit on empathy. And when we go there, the students are always amazed at what we do with that unit, because I think they feel like, oh, give me all the great tools to show I have a master's degree. But one of those tools are love and kindness and caring and empathy. So sometimes we look for the big thing when the big thing is the smallest thing among us. That is the big thing. And so I say, don't fear. I say, do the work. I say, start step by step. I say, research. I say, read. I say, speak to people who are affected by the work. One of the big things I want to share here is that a lot of people are now talking about equity statement. And when I've gotten so much, you know, people asking me questions, even yesterday I was talking to someone and I say to her, your most powerful tool in creating an equity statement is having discussion with the persons who are going to be impacted by the statement.
Right.
I said the words, you can copy and paste them from the internet. There are thousands of equity statements on the internet. Half of them are empty. And they are only empty because they are not involved with the people. They're not involved with the people. So you talk about that, mindfulness. You talk about that, right? It's their heart and mind. It's about the people, the soft skill, the emotional intelligence. That's what you talk about. And it has to start with the people. We like a theory. We like content, but we forget the carriage for content and theory. It's people. Never you forget the people. So I say start where you're comfortable at, and continue growing. And I must add this, when I started this work, there's so many things that I didn't understand. And what I did, I invest in my own learning. So I read, I did courses, I spoke to people like you to get feedback from you. I spoke to other colleagues. That's how you do. Some of those great coffee meetings you see me having, I am drinking. I'm not just drinking the coffee. I am drinking from the person I'm talking to. And I'm drinking even more from the person than the coffee, because that's what you do to learn and to grow. So we have to do it. We just have to just do it.
Just do it. And I think one of the things that I always like to say is to bring the voices of the people into the conversation. Don't speak for people, speak with
Absolutely.
them. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. So I'm
Thank
actually
you.
going to switch the order of the questions that I sent you and
That's
ask you the
fine.
emotional intelligence question right now, because what we were
That's
talking about
fine.
just there was that. So how does the nurturance of emotional intelligence skills with students, our teacher candidates, and kids in schools, how does it support this kind of work?
So I was doing some reading, some relaxed reading, and I said, you know what? Let me do something because I'm going to speak to Jackie and read something. So I was reading about Daniel Goleman, the psychologist, talking about emotional intelligence and the key elements. And I smiled when I saw the word self-awareness, motivation, empathy, self-regulation, and I just go, this is it, because in school we talk about character traits, right? We talk about learning skills, the nurturing of those skills so students can leave school with a foundation. And so for me, emotional intelligence absolutely is a part of the foundation of anti-racism, equity, diversity, inclusive work, because we are working with people. We are working with people. And I think the more and more when I do workshops and I do talks, I keep on reminding people the work of equity, diversity, and inclusion, and anti-racist work is with people. So who are you doing the work? That is something I have been pushing back a lot lately. Who are you? Yes, you're the CEO. Fine, that's a title. But who are you? When I see you in the corridor, are you the person who would smile at me? Am I intimidated by you? Do you talk to any of us? Do you know my name?
That's right.
Am I the person who bring you your paper and your coffee? Do you actually know my name? Who are you? Because when people invest into understanding who they are, they also take the time to understand who other persons are.
Yes.
Do that. Once you're very big, the more I've connected to myself, the more I've connected to others. The more I talk about self-care, because I'm very big on that. The more I talk about self-care, I talk about how do I care for others. Because the most selfish thing you can do is to care only for yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's nothing. And so for me, the nurturing of emotional intelligence skills, they are like foundation. I would put emotional intelligence here and say, let's build on that. So those self-regulation, self-awareness, self-awareness is one of the major skills that people lack when they discriminate and when they do those isms, and the phobias and the homophobia and the ageism. It's that level of awareness that is lacking for themselves and for others. And those are the same persons who keep on apologizing constantly because they said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, because there's no investment in basic self-awareness. So they're constantly doing wrong and apologizing because they don't spend no time to connect. So emotional intelligence is big. It's very big.
It's huge, and it feels to me right now in the world, when I listen to the news, I see things on social media, there is a lack of self-awareness. There is a lack of general emotional intelligence. And so this kind of work that you and I are doing is so critical.
Absolutely.
Not that it wasn't before, but it feels to me like it's increasing. So the self-awareness question actually, I think, is an interesting one that leads me to implicit bias. Because I think that when people lack self-awareness, they're not aware of their implicit bias. So can you talk to us about implicit bias and how it manifests itself in classrooms and families?
Yeah, so implicit bias, as you said, it's about understanding your bias. So the first thing I want to say is that we all have bias.
Yes.
All of us. And when I do this kind of workshop, I always say to people, we all have it, but some more than some. And here comes the magic, which you already know. The magic is the persons who have less are the ones who are more self-aware.
Yes.
You have checked yourself. You have checked on yourself. You have checked out yourself. You're checked in constantly to know what's going on because you just don't know. And that is why I said to people in my first earlier question, I said, don't be afraid to make a mistake. The difference with you making a mistake and the person who constantly apologizes, and like I said before, is that when you make the mistake or when I make the mistake, Jackie, we apologize and then we go and we look at what we just said and we unpack it. We invest that time to say, wow, that was not good. why was that? Why was she offended? What did that mean? What? And then you get that moment, because now you have now been more invested in that implicit bias, where you are now unpacking, you're opening up, you're understanding. So it's very important that you be aware of how bias affects and impacts other people.
Yes.
And then you work at eliminating that. So how you work at eliminating that is to be aware, to be conscious, to be intentional, to be deliberate. Let me give you a perfect example. You know, I'd like to tell a story. A story is my thing. Growing up in Jamaica, I was a young teacher in 1995. And I taught at a school, all Black kids, and these were kids from the lower echelon of society, like lower echelon of society. And I remember we used to make our own posters. We call them chart, learning charts. We, you know, now you can buy them in any store. You buy them online. But hello to the young teachers out there. We made everyone ourselves. We made them. And those days, you cut out pictures out of magazines. A teacher would, if you was a dentist or a doctor and a teacher walk into your practice, you know we are walking out with a magazine. We are taking a magazine with us because we got the pictures. And I remember as a young teacher, I will never forget, I was teaching adjectives. And so the pictures I chose from the magazine, you know, this is a boy, this is a girl. And it was a little white boy, it was a little, you know, white little girl with long blonde hair. This was a car, it was a beautiful, like Mercedes Benz. It was a big house, it was a beautiful, huge house that I'd never even dream of living in. And this was a family, and it was a mom and a dad and a boy and a girl. And so these were the images. And, you know, I taught the lesson and everything went well and I was done. And a couple of years, maybe 10 years ago, I was doing a workshop about implicit bias. And that example came back to me, and I wasn't prepared because I didn't unpack it. And I literally got emotional and tears run down my eyes right in the workshop. And I didn't know what was happening to me, but then immediately I realized that for years, or for that time, as a teacher who didn't understand certain things, I showed little Black boys and girls what beauty looked like, what handsome looked like, what a home looked like, what a car looked like, what a family looked like, and it didn't look like them at all. That was a bias I held, an unconscious bias of what a family should look like, what a home should look like. And so as teachers, we do that still, because I go into schools, I see grade 2 and grade 1 teachers teaching the family, and they still have the picture of a mom and a dad, a boy and a girl. There's no picture of a single mom. There's no picture of a same-sex couple. They say they don't, none doing that, or a grandma who is is an extended family. So those are the things we're doing as educators. Those biases, we still have them unconsciously. And here is the danger. They come out in how we teach without we not knowing. So the cues are there, the charts are made, the lessons are taught, the stories are told, and the kids don't see themselves in your stories. They are not seeing themselves in your lectures. And because of that, it's an unconscious bias that we have. And the more we peel that away, the more we can reach our students, because we are intentional about these kind of things. And so for me, the unconscious bias, it leads to everyday action. It leads to the everyday actions we do in class. Who gets picked on a side? Who gets to be on the quiz team? Who gets to go in gifted programs? Who gets to sit on the front of the dance because they go to ballet class? There's so many stories I could tell you about how unconscious bias impact how we teach. And so as educators, we have to be very careful, and we have to unpack those, because it's affecting the students in front of us every single day.
And it's affecting our own understanding of these issues as well. Yeah. I always give the example of Disney movies, because people love Disney. The fact is, I love Disney. I've been to Disney World many, many times.
Yeah.
But when you watch Disney movies, you're not always aware of the stereotypes and the bias that exists in there. And Disney's been called up on the carpet for those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So paying attention, it's not to say, you and I've talked about this, it's not to say we don't use the material or we don't watch the movies. Who doesn't like a Disney movie? But the fact is, when that stereotype or those biases present themselves, We need to talk about them. We need to point them out. And
Yeah,
as you said to me recently, we also need to show the opposite or the strength of the person. When the person is diminished,
absolutely.
show the other side of that. I thought that was brilliant.
Absolutely.
That really stayed with
Absolutely.
me.
Absolutely. Because you know what, in this equity work, I find that I've seen people who have had the conversation, and when the conversation, has ended, the person who they're talking about is still left in deficit.
Yes.
And an example I use, I saw a teacher taught a lesson once and was in Black History Month, and it was about slavery. And I think intentions were pure. Intentions were good. But it was just before recess. It was just before recess. And just before recess. And she had the kids on the carpet. It was a grade 3 class. And the last word came out of her mouth was, and so all the Black people were treated worse than the dogs. And then the bell rang and she said, let's go for recess. And I swooped in and I stopped her. I said, stop, everybody, let's wait. Give us a minute. We're going to give back your recess time. And I had the kids sit, and I say to her, I whispered to her, very discreet. I said to her, you have to bring the kids out of slavery before they go. I said, you have to. She said, you have to pull the lesson in strength. The last thing little boys and girls, especially boys and girls of color and Black kids, before recess, running outside in the schoolyard, cannot be, and they were treated worse than dogs. And so we have to leave people in strength. Even doing this work, you have to leave people in strength. That's why I said to you before that I will call you out and challenge you in my workshop, but I will never leave the workshop with that. I will always call you back in to say, here's what you do when you go to school tomorrow. Here are 2 tools I'm giving you. Here is one method I want to share with you. You leave your participants, you leave your characters, you leave your stories in strength. Because when we constantly leave them in deficit, it's still impacting how we see things, because you leave them in deficit. So leave people in strength. Anchor your work in strength.
I love that. And I really love that calling in. I just think that's so, and for me, that's a lot of what we talk about at Hearts and Minds Matter is
Yes.
making the place safe for people, making the space we're in for the conversation, for the teaching safe, so that
Yes.
people don't leave with the wrong message or they don't feel safe enough to open up. I really, really love that. So
Yeah.
how can teachers do this work in their classroom? I mean, we've kind of talked about some ideas, but what other ideas would you have for teachers?
So I'm going to share 4 things, like a list, right? I'm going to share my first list. I'm going to share 4 things. The first one, I think we have talked about quite a bit already, is as teachers, number 1, you must know who you are.
Yes.
And who you are is more than what your hobbies and what you like, your favorite color. Who you are and the things you're passionate about, the people you admire most, the bias you hold, understanding your privilege, understanding your prejudice, understanding that, you live in a big house with 4-car garage and you drive a Mercedes Benz. It's a part of who you are. Don't hide that. But what does that look like when you enter the school? Who are you? How do you use that power, that privilege, that strength to bring people in your space and to empower others? We talk about that. So now understanding self. The next one is, this is one of my favorite. It's creating a classroom climate of belonging.
Yes, yes,
As a
yes.
teacher, every single child should be like, that's my class. That's my teacher. You have taught kindergarten for years, and I'm sure nothing, you get this every day. A child will say, that's my teacher. And it really give me goosebumps to say this when a child says, that's my teacher.
Well, that's my mom. I love when they say
That's
that.
my mom. That's my mom. That's my teacher. That's my daddy. That's my auntie. In the Bahamas, you get that a lot. I used to get that a lot because it shows a sense of belonging.
Yes.
And then the sad part is you see other kids walking and they're scared. They're ashamed. They're afraid, and they're not introducing anybody.
That's right.
The kids feel, that's my class, that's my teacher. Let your children, the students who you teach, point you out everywhere. That's my teacher, and I'm in her class, and that class is beautiful, and I love my teacher. Let that be a sense of belonging. You have to create a space where the kids know, and the students know, this is their classroom. I am your teacher, and guess what? I am here for you.
Right.
You have to create that. It's not automatic. And I want to say that to the teachers, the young teachers who are listening, it is not automatic. You go and create that. You can have schools where the climate is so amazing and one teacher class where the climate is hostile because you create that climate. So number two. Number three is cultural relevant and responsive pedagogy. You can't get enough of it. You can't say enough of it. A lot of people are getting into it. And what I like is that I think we had I'm going to use a Corona term. I think we had a first wave where everybody's saying culture relevant pedagogy, and it's a picture, and it's a picture on the wall. It's a black teacher. It's showing a river. It's showing a beach. It's showing reading books and poems from different spaces. It's having the First Nation books here and having the little black girl book there, and that's like the first wave. I think now we have to get into the second wave, which is understanding the real tenets of cultural relevant pedagogy, which is one of them is hope, and is holding high expectations for all our students. That's the number one tenet. And giving kids, giving our kids and our students the ability to be culturally conscious. It's more than a book. It's more than a book. You could have 10 books of little black boys and girls and little Asian boys and girls and kids in a wheelchair and kids, who is losing a limb, all that kind of stuff on the book, and kids who are identified as LGBT, whatever. But until the students themselves are taught the cultural humility and how to value others, then a book is a book and it's just a book.
Right.
So that's number four, number three, cultural relevant pedagogy. And number four is advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
Teacher is an advocate.
Yeah.
I am very big when I teach leadership courses and I do workshops on leadership styles. I never leave out the advocacy style, because as a leader, you are at the front. You are bold. You have a signature. You have your name on the door. You have certain power and position that gives you certain authority to allow you to advocate. And that's why sometimes I must say to you today, say this to you, Jackie, I get a little bit upset. Maybe that's the word to use because that's an emotion. When I see people with power and position behave as if they're helpless. Oh, I can't do nothing about that. I didn't say you can fix everything, but I say you can use your currency. You can write letters that the other persons can't write. You have access to meetings that other persons don't have access to. When you go in those spaces, open up your mouth, raise your hand, say something. That's what advocacy is. Sometimes people think advocacy is let me go on the street and protest. No. That's one form of advocacy. You have the power to sit at your desk and write letters and emails. You know, if you make a phone call and you say, hey, Dr. Campbell, I have this young lady, her name is Jackie, and she's coming for an interview. I want you to talk to her. That's advocacy. That's going there. That's seeing students who can't do for themselves and you do for them. That's going to those ISS meetings and those IST meetings and those special education meetings and whatever those call those programs. We have a whole bunch of acronyms. Going to those meetings and speak on behalf of a child. I remember years ago when I started my resource room, I told you about this. I was going back, I just finished college and I graduated. I had the most awards. I graduated from 1995. I graduated from Micah Teachers College here in Jamaica, and I was a graduate that year with the most teaching awards. Best teacher of reading, best teacher of maths, best overall study, best teacher of classroom management, best teacher. And remember, I have the award for best teacher of reading. And I went into the school, and the principal, she was like a mom to me, Barbara Reed, as she died, may her soul rest in peace, amazing nurturer. And she said to me, Mr. Campbell, which class do you want? And I know she was, I was gonna say grade 6 or grade 5 because I love teaching grade 6 or grade 5. And there were vacancies in grade 6 and grade 5 because they were doing allocations, right? And I said to her, I wanna teach reading. I said to her, I wanna teach all the kids who can't read, Miss Reed. And she said to me, we don't have a reading room. And I said to her, but is there any way we can create one or something, because I was young. I was a young teacher. I was a trained teacher at 21, certified teacher. I was very young going out. So now I've told you my age. I've aged myself. See, not as young as I look. Okay, I always say it's good genes, good God, and I moisturize.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
And so she went back to the ministry, and then she came back to me a week after, and she said to me, the old locked up home economics abandoned room, she said, you can take it. And I took the room, I cleaned it up myself, and I opened a reading room for the kids who couldn't read. I mean, and I hope you understand, in those days with certain stereotypes, because you know this is 1995 when stereotypes and labeling was the order of the day. Those are the schools where you stream kids from A to F. That's what those days. And I at the dunce room, and we can use that word here because it's an honest truth. And I became the teacher with the dunce kids. And of course, there was stigma to that. And I tell you no lie, Jackie, after about 4 months in that room, we had parents coming to the school asking how could they get their kids in that room. That room. Because it wasn't about the room, it was about the teacher and the students. The room is 4 walls with a door and some window that just had dust coming through. But the real juice was the teacher and the interaction. And I have to end this part by saying this. The teacher is the single most important ingredient in the teaching and learning process. I like that we are putting in technology and this and that and this and that, and I'm all for it. I am all for it. But the teacher is the single most important ingredient. That human factor, that emotional intelligence, that even the way you hand the student the tablet, even the way you hand them the tablet says, I see you, I care for you. So yeah, those are the 4 things I want to leave at my teachers. Self, classrooms, climate of belonging, cultural relevant responsive pedagogy, and your advocacy. It's important.
I so agree with the relationship. And I have so many of my own personal stories from when I was a kid. You probably have so many stories. And then when I was a teacher. And I totally agree. And it's the reason that we started Hearts and Minds Matter was to really get this point across. It's about building that inclusion and community. Make those kids understand they belong there and you are their teacher and you're going to stand by them. You're not going to be a bystander. You're going to stand by them, stand with them. And like you say, you're going to advocate for them. That is a huge thing. So our last question is, what are some of the best resources that parents and teachers can access in order to support the work with children? And before you answer it, you haven't necessarily named them, but you've certainly talked about their work over this interview that we've done. And I just want to encourage, from my perspective, teachers to read the work of James Banks and Randall Lindsay. 2 huge authors in the work of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Such valuable work. And even if I would suggest that you read the whole books or the whole set of works, but even if you only look at the charts that they've created to see where you lie on the cultural proficiency continuum, it's so important. But what other things would you talk about in terms of resources for teachers and parents?
For teachers and parents. So I'm definitely going to start with books. So you just start with books. Books are important. Get those books, get those voices, because the books are voices. So I consider a book a voice, right? Get those books, get those voices, and get different kinds of writers also. Get different kinds of writers. I'm sure you realize during the Black Lives Matter movement lately that everybody's talking about the one book, right? White Fragility, right? And then we had to do is to bring in the other books, by Desmond Cole and other books and many other writers out there to bring them in the room. In my class, I have tons of books that I show the students they can write. Deep diversity, all the kind of stuff. Why are all the kids sitting in the cafeteria at one table? Tons of books you can. So the books are important. Get that. The next resource is also movies. There's so many lessons in movies. There is an activity that I do called Real Talk, REEL, Real Talk. And so what I do, I ask my students at the university, master's, PhD, whatever level, to find a movie or an episode from a series or a clip that speaks to an era of equity, diversity, and inclusion. It may be an uncomfortable one, it may be a funny one, it may be one that is even stereotypical, but look at that. And then you unpack what's the intention of the writer. What are the actors saying and doing? What is the story behind the story we are seeing, right? Yeah. And sometimes we forget that these things can really encourage amazing dialogue. And I have seen especially here at OISE, I have seen amazing dialogue with my students. I mean, I have to do a shout out to my anti-discrim students who have done the Real Talk with me. Even this past intercession, I had that activity with one of my group, PJ271, and I'm telling you this, they did a stellar job that really going back and forth, talking about the theme, because the movie is something that they're into. Mm-hmm. But what they realized, now you can take this movie to a whole nother level. And I said to them, when you are teaching, use this strategy as a teaching strategy. So that is it. Another strategy I want to leave, a resource, is having conversations mm-hmm. with people who are different from you. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes we think we know and we don't know. And we have to learn to know. For instance, I identified in the LGBTQ family, I identify as gay. And I'm going to tell you this, I have had some of the best growing conversation with Black trans women or trans women. Why? Because I don't know so many things. Mm-hmm. And having those conversations, just not to prod them to tell you, conversations. Let's do lunch. Let's do coffee. Sometimes I think what's happening for people who want to grow in equity is that somebody, and people have done it to me, they just call you out to the blues, let's go have a talk, you know, and they just want to just take so much from you. And I think they're not conscious that they're taking so much from you. Make it conversation. Make it a lunch date, and you pay for the lunch. Oh, not me. You pay for the lunch. You know what I'm saying? And let us talk. Let us have a glass of wine and let us have conversation, because those moments are so genuine. They are authentic. They flow. They flow. Other than you keep on having people just, you know, give me. And so there are ways to get. There are ways to get. Like you are getting from me and I'm getting from you right now. It's a pleasure to do this, Jackie. And let me just say this. It's a pleasure to chat with you, because you know what? We're not just talking this for the first time. We talk in the passageway. We see each other on LinkedIn. We each other on social media. So you coming to me is an easy conversation. Me talking to you, because we have built relationship. You're not a stranger in the hallway. That's something that people are. Well, you're not a stranger. And so we have to do that as a resource to teach us, have conversations with those persons. I tell you this. I remember I was teaching at a school, and these parents, they were Indian, and they're from India, right? And I teach a little boy, and he's an Indian student. And I would talk to the parents. And one day he said to me who his grandma was and who his grandfather was and their aunt. And I said, you have to bring your grandmother to school. I have to meet your grandmother. So the grandmother came to school. And I had a conversation with her outside in the schoolyard. We had a good conversation. And I said to her, can you come to my class one day and just talk to my students? And I said, listen, it was no big deal, because we had conversations. She realized I appreciated her, I respected her. I wasn't trying to make her a token. It was a genuine. And then she said, to me, and I'm gonna wear my costume and my clothes. And I was like, amen, amen. So, you know, sometimes things can look token, and because of how you go about it. So I always tell people already, nothing is wrong with being the first, because we need that. But how do we maintain that, and how do we grow that and not allow people to feel token, right? So that is how we do it. So we go to the books, we go to the movies, we have conversations with people, and we be open to learning. That's a good resource, to open, to trying to be open. We need to be more open to listening, to asking, to trying, and share. So that for me, that is a start. I don't want to give, I don't want to give too many resources, because sometimes you give people too many resources, the resource itself becomes the barrier.
Yes, that's very true.
Very true. So start with books, start with movies, start with conversation, real conversations. Invite people to you. You know what I say? I close this one, Jackie. Invite people to your backyard barbecue. That's not your regular people. You can have the regular people. You have your family, your friends you want to talk with, but extend the barbecue. Extend the barbecue and make it a mix, and put in something different and get to know people. I love entertaining. I love a dinner. I love a conversation. And when people say you can come around food and have conversation, it's true. Food can bring out so many different lessons and ideas. And so start with those things. Start with the human touch. Start with the human touch, not the policy, not the policy. Start with the human touch. That's it.
And really connect on a deep level. This is what I love. So at Hearts and Minds Matter, you often hear about in the corporate world where they're hiring companies and paying them all kinds of money to come in and do this inclusion building. And what are they doing? They're doing fun little games and icebreakers, and then maybe they're going out for drinks afterwards. That is not building inclusion and understanding who each other is. So when you do a little icebreaker, if you're going to do them, nothing wrong with them because they're fun. No. But have the intention to go deeper into who the person is, not just the little fun where we're running around and being silly. As I said, all good, but include other things so each other can talk. They can go deeper than who they really, really are, which is what we really emphasize in Hearts and Minds Matter.
Absolutely.
Andrew, this has been so much fun and so informative, and I know that the viewers are going to get so much out of it, and I just so appreciate you and the work that you do and the energy and enthusiasm you have for it. And some of the little gems from today, the calling in and the leaving with strength, so much in this conversation. So Andrew, thank you from my heart to your heart.
A pleasure, a pleasure. And I see you. If I don't see you, I'm sure I'm going to see you in cyber world, but then
cyberspace.
We'll get to the place where I see you in the hallway again, and I can say, "Hey, Jackie," we can run and give a hug, or
we'll have a real live hug.
Compliment each other on something. We're missing that, right? But we're getting it, and I think a lot of us are doing a good job at connecting even during this time, and it's important.
Absolutely. So thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. A pleasure.
Thank you.